Today we have a very special guest, man. We got a guy I've been trying to get on this show for a while. Things kept on coming up. I was sick or busy or whatever it was. It always seemed to have come up, but he has an amazing show. I definitely suggest that you guys go check him out if you haven't. But we got Josh Davis from the Philly Special Podcast. Josh, what's going on, brother? How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing awesome, Joe. I appreciate it. And hey, you know what? You say you've been trying to get me on for forever. I was telling you beforehand, like, I am super pumped to be here. Been watching the show, big fan for a while, but actually to get to chop it up, I'm excited. There's obviously lots of news to break down and what's going on, but no, I am excited, and really first time for us to actually catch up here post the combine. So you had so much great content. So I got to give kudos to you for that. And really, I can't wait for the draft because that's an awesome opportunity too.
Yeah, no, that's going to be fun. That's definitely going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be in these players' faces a whole lot.
You want Philly food?
Let's do it.
What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Joe Castro, aka Philly Fresco, and it is Philly the podcast. So, okay, let's start with this free agency. I mean, obviously the Eagles were able to retain some of their players, bring on some new faces, in the totality of it, spending about $85 million for all the contracts, about 12 people re-signed. I want to start there. Who or what do you think was the best free agent move so far?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I guess I'll go two ways with it. So for one, I think the best move was really just retaining James Bradberry. I mean, the deal that he signed and keeping it, he obviously signed a team-friendly deal, and I loved all the interviews, him saying Philly's the best fit, I wanted to return, and you got to see a lot of players' true colors of, are they in it completely for the money, or do they love Philly and they want to stay with this culture and this team because they see big things are in store. You can't knock the players for leaving, the ones that took the big deals, because you know what? Hey, a lot of us, I think, would sign up for the biggest payday if we get the chance possible for that. But I think James Bradberry, his level of play, you solidify the corner spot. Obviously, Slay is staying too, but I think that's probably the best move as of right now. But I would also say at the current state, and we can get into, I'm sure we will in a second, for Bijan Robinson, running back situation, what are we going to do there? But I think Rashad Penny could possibly be the best move by the end of the season. Now, there's a lot of issues or questions of, is he actually going to stay healthy, because he hasn't for some time. What is it, like 18 games over the last 3 seasons? So yeah, there's a lot of question marks there, but if he stays healthy, I mean, behind this offensive line with Jalen Hurts, the RPO, like the dude's at Rashad's averaging like 6.2 yards a carry over the last 3 seasons. So it remains to be seen, and there's a lot to come, but I think that if he is actually one of your top 2 backs, you're spelling him with Kenny G, I think at the end of the year, if he's healthy, I would say that's the best move. But currently, I'll go with James Bradberry.
I have to agree. And honestly, I think that even going deeper with the James Bradberry, I think it was very important and very imperative. I think we'll go that far. I think it was imperative and necessary for Howie Roseman to shift as quickly as he did. Obviously, it sucks to not be able to get a guy like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back, but we could have been in a situation where we had nobody in that secondary. So I am very, very glad that he brought him back. Now, you talk about Rashad Penny, and I'm glad you bring him up because someone said on Twitter, which I thought was the best way of putting it, we got a bunch of lottery tickets. We have a bunch of guys, where if history repeats itself, especially with a guy like Rashad Penny, we're going to get a hell of a 6 games. But what beyond that, right? So you look at all these players that we have and the lottery tickets that we got, and some of these may really hit. But when you look at the team as it stands right now and you look at free agency, do you feel that there's still more holes that this Eagles team may need to fill?
I do. I mean, and there's a lot of different areas. I don't think there's anything glaring, really. So that's a good thing. And as I've mentioned on some of my shows previously, and I know you've talked about it quite a bit, but you don't really like to have, or really don't want to have, big, massive needs going into the draft, because then you stop drafting based on your draft board and you say, oh, wait, who's the best at, X position? So I don't think that we're there, and Howie deserves a lot of credit, which is great, but we still do have some minor needs. And I would say, offensive line, I'm not super surprised that we haven't signed anybody in free agency, because I think we both know, and a lot of people know, that Howie likes to draft those offensive linemen, and Stoutland has an eye for players. I mean, look at Jordan Mailata as the best case scenario. Obviously, you're probably not going to hit a 7th round pick most years, but the fact that he kind of has an eye for, hey, you know what, I can develop someone at that point, maybe it leads to say, you're not going to sign an offensive lineman, because a lot of times you're paying a premium for those guys anyway. But I think that, you need some depth, as we've seen in past seasons, whenever you've had head coaching turnover with a Doug Peterson, or even an Andy Reid, I guess back in 2012. the O-line was hit with injuries and there wasn't that depth to kind of step up and say, hey, we still can actually keep running what we want to. So I think O-line is a piece. Obviously, you've got questions of maybe linebacker. I know Nakobe Dean, you've got a Nick Morrow, but I think everyone, at least me, for personally, I mean, I believe that Nakobe Dean, it's his year, it's his time to shine. But that second piece, like, is it Nick Morrow? Is that going to be the guy? You got a Davion Taylor, Sean Bradley. Like, there's other options, but I don't know. Are you sold completely, or should you go after someone in the draft? And then I'd say maybe the other piece or the other area is a wide receiver 3. I think Lord Brunson was actually commenting on Twitter. Maybe that's where I first saw it, but he's saying, hey, wide receiver 3 is a make or break. It's a big deal. And I agree. You need that, like, that extra weapon that no one really can account for. They don't have enough defensive players. So it's kind of like that's the game changer. And, is Quez Watkins that? We could, maybe get into a little bit of debate there. I think he has a lot of potential, but is he your guy, or you need to go target someone else in the draft? So a guy like a Tank Dell is someone that I would be interested in, but I don't know how long he's going to stay available. And obviously in this draft, we don't have a lot of draft picks. So I don't know. That's a lot of like very small holes, I guess, to answer your question. But I think there's some areas that obviously we need to fill. So what do you think, though? I mean, when you've been taking a look at this, I know you've been mentioning it on several shows, but like if you're taking a look at this team, this group, like where's the main priority maybe whenever you look at the smaller holes, the areas we need to fill?
Yeah, no, I think you said it perfectly, especially with we don't have any major needs. And that was probably my biggest takeaway from this free agency so far, is that we did get a bunch of guys that, like I said, lottery tickets, but they can play. You know what I'm saying? They can play at the very worst if you don't go and get that position. I personally love Quez Watkins. I do know, I say this every show because I know he probably is watching. I know his trainer, and I know that he's working his butt off, and I do want to see him succeed in this offense. But I do think that a wide receiver 3 is becoming a little bit important. And I did a video not too long ago about some veterans that we can get on, and I personally would rather kind of go that way, just because I think that we do have such a deficiencies of picks, right? We just don't have the 10, 11, 12 that we may have next year. And obviously you can trade back and everything, but I've seen people taking wide receivers in the first round. And I just don't think that that's what we need to do right now. I think that the Eagles are in a very lucky situation, because you can go get a Jahmyr Gibbs, towards the end of the first round. That kind of solves your slot problem, in my opinion. That kind of, makes your slot position a little less important. So it really depends on what you're going to do at that running back spot. I think if you want to go get somebody that's going to be solid, going to be for sure, and you don't have to worry about him, you go and get a veteran. If you're looking for somebody to just completely take over for Quez Watkins and be a future guy, maybe you go in the draft. But right now, I think that wide receiver 3 is a position to watch out for, but I don't think it's necessarily just because of Quez. I think it depends on what you do at that running back spot. It depends what you do in that, free agency veteran market. I think there's a lot of good options. So I will say safety as well. I think that safety, I don't feel 1,000% confident. Like Reed Blankenship looked really good in the time that he played, and I hope that continues. Terrell Edmunds was a guy that I was excited to hear that he left the Steelers and decided to come with the Eagles. But again, he's not a flashy player. He's not an over-the-top player. So it'll be interesting to see what he does now in our defense. But I think safety is a spot that, even if it's for the future, because you might get caught in a situation where Terrell Edmunds plays outside of his mind. He might go crazy this year. And I'm not really at the point that I feel comfortable saying how he's going to pay that. So it worries me that you do have some young guys that can do some things, but I don't know. I really don't know how much Howie's philosophy has changed. It has changed. I think that's something that we have to he's definitely showed some different tendencies. Like if you told me going into this year that we would actually give Chauncey Gardner-Johnson a respectable first contract offer, I would probably be like, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But we did. We went out there and we tried to re-sign him. We went out there. We brought our cornerbacks back. Those are things that I'm not used to seeing how we do, to be 100% honest. So I thought we were going to maybe do, a Hargrave, bring Sayamalu back, because that's where they usually live. But not seeing that this year could change a lot of things. So that's why I'm very open to almost anybody. I really am. But we'll get into some draft talk. But before we get off of free agency, overall, what would you grade this free agency thus far? Obviously, still a lot of time to go.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, and I know I've seen some of the ESPN articles and reports, it seems like the consensus is at least the national media, like a B- or a B. I think it's better than that, quite honestly. I would say I'm kind of in between, like maybe an A minus or an A even, because again, it's not like how he was going to sign everybody. Like we know that there were going to be losses, and I've had lots of people like text and message me, and even in conversation like, oh hey, the Eagles lost so many players. Like, well, yeah, like we were going to lose a lot of players. There's a lot of money that we didn't have. But the idea that, at the beginning of free agency, I would have told you, hey, by the way, the Eagles are going to be 7th most in cap space right now. And then take a look at all the players that we still have. Like, that to me is a win. So that's why I would say probably giving it an A, because there's still room for moves to be made. Obviously, Howie signed C.J. Gardner-Johnson, 10 days before the regular season started last year. So he's got so much more time. The draft picks, yeah, you mentioned we don't have quite the equity that we have in years past because there's not as many picks, but still, you've got a lot of cap space. You've got some draft picks, some high draft picks, 2 in the first round, which is a big win anytime you can do that. And then you've got more time with free agency that Howie could get some deals done or some trades possibly even. You just never know. So for me, I probably landed at an A. How about you, though?
I'm right around there. I'm like B plus, A minus, and with room to grow. You know what I'm saying? Definitely room to grow. I would never have imagined 12 guys are either back or just signed to this team. That's insane. And then not only that, he has more money than we started with. It's weird how it works, and obviously it kind of goes back to the notion, which I think is a conversation in its own. But the cap is such a fable at this point. It's such a fairy tale thing that you can't work around the cap. And Howie Roseman, honestly, I think that he makes a lot of other GMs look kind of dumb. I think he really does, because a lot of times you hear, and we'll stay in the division. You look at Jerry Jones, and they complain a lot about their quarterback situation with the money that they have to pay and not being able to surround their quarterback with talent. I mean, the Eagles have shown time and time again, it really doesn't matter how much dead money you have. It doesn't really matter where you are cap-wise. If you want to make things shake and you have the players on your side, you can make almost anything a realistic possibility. So I think it's been beautiful. So I'm right there. I'm like B plus, A minus. I'm leaning towards A minus though. So by the end of it, I'm sure I'll be at A plus. I'm just excited about this team.
Eagles fans everywhere. This is for you.
Fly, Eagles flying on the team. Touchdown. Time to get Jalen this ring. You don't really want to start a thing. This a Bird Gang Nation, baby. It's a Philly thing. Hater, and you looking like you type trash. I'm just here calling on Philly the podcast. And we can call a man dog or watch Miles score off the handoff. Rest of the division, your man Saul Jackson like Sean, hunting like Randolph. Season here, early time to do them in. Your boy Philly Fresco. Thanks for tuning